All right, we can get started. So, we started off doing this as a book club, but now that the stars have aligned and we're finally homeschooling and things like that, we decided to do this book over as a homeschooling thing. This is How Long Till Black Future by M.K. Jemison. I actually bought this from Barnes and Noble. Let me know if you can hear me in the comments, but I actually bought this from Barnes and Noble. I think it was like $20. If you guys want to get a copy, you guys can also go to Amazon and get a copy. Can you hear my laptop, please? Um, in fact, no, you can't hear me. My laptop. Actually, just I'll figure it out in a second. But yeah, this is a book that we're reading, and we're starting off with the first story. The first story is called "The Ones Who Stay and Fight," and we're gonna start off with Zeke giving us a nice little summary in his own words about what the story was about. So, what was the story about?
The story starts off with this one why does he like messing with this? First the story starts with this one skinny ghetto boy that actually has been dreaming of, how do I put this? He's been dreaming of finance, or at the very least a good place to stay for a long time. So much that he greeds for it. But every single time and every single day, he saves up his money and he goes to this one restaurant where he finds this one old man always sitting there, telling him to listen and telling him these weird things that he barely listens to. But now seems the day that he finally listens to the old man. It begins to spiral. The old man's teaching actually begins to spiral to the point where the ghetto man's point of view changes, as well as his art. As now he's like doing art for like specific people, for specific places, going for as making a endless black hole on towers and buildings that can only be seen from different flight angles, as if you're going from this place to the next. He then gains a new perspective of how we're probably all cells, and everything is just one big bloodstream, going in and out. What?
I ain't saying nothing.
He had a look.
Cause I don't know what story you talking about. You ain't talking about what we just read. Anyway.
Yes, we did.
So
I got the whole body feeling from it.
You got a whole body feeling from it? That's interesting.
Well, yeah, they were talking about how the whole streets is basically alive. And instead of it being like organisms, I thought of everything going, you know those trippy pictures that go smaller in of itself? Like the photograph of the same photograph over and over again till you can't see it no more.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I thought of it like that, but outwards.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, okay. Well, so I'll let your summary live. The summary of the story is about a man who's talking about a dystopia called Halal, and he's talking about all of the different things that make up Halal and the different rules and regulations and how the people live. And they're considered as people, but they also have wings. But they can also choose to not have wings. Instead of having police officers, what they have, they call social workers. And what the social workers do is, they keep the peace. They're like peacekeepers. They're like police officers. They keep things going. And we're going to get into like the different details in a second. Um, yeah. So let's get into that part. So some of the words that I would like for you. Do you have like a way to take notes? Can you grab me a pencil because I would like to be able to take notes? See that little blue green bag right there?
No, you can take this.
Okay, do you have something to use?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the words that I would like for you to utilize during this week is aspirations. I want you to think about. First, I want you to go ahead and sit you on your laptop. I want you to research the word aspirations, because one thing that I read in the story had a lot of quotes as when they were talking about halal and how these people live. And when they talk about our aspirations, they talk about how not one person or not one thing is bigger or more important than the whole, right? And so with them talking about how not one thing or anything like that is one bigger, aspirations was also one of them. Not one's happiness, not one's safety or anything is bigger than the whole. I'm trying to find the page so that I can give you guys a direct quote. Well, Zeke gives us the definition of aspirations. Okay, this is actually this is a city where numberless aspirations can be fulfilled.
Aspiration.
Mm,
A hope of ambition or achieving something.
okay,
Or
so
in medical terms, an action or process of drawing breath.
action and process of drawing back. So during this week in Alliance for Aspirations, I want us to do some reflection on our own personal aspirations and the different. You should be note taking right now. We are going to get into our own aspirations, and we're also going to get into the environment that we feel is necessary in order to achieve said aspirations. Because now we know what aspirations are. Let me write this down so I don't forget. What are your aspirations? And what kind of environment do you think you need do you think you need to achieve do you think you need to achieve aspirations? Another word that I would like to concentrate on during this time is anathema. I actually put forth the energy to research that word myself, and it had two definitions. The first definition is to passionately hate something. That's Anathema. This was also a word that was in the story. As in the story, they talk about halal. They talk about the dystopia, and then as you're talking, they dwindle down to this one happening within this dystopia. And so the social workers, like I spoke about before, they are in the room. I mean, not they're outside and they're circled and staring down at this dead body. And his daughter is sitting next to him, and she's crying. And the social workers are apologizing to the girl, but they had to kill the guy because the guy broke the law, and breaking the law, the result is death, because to them no one person is greater than a whole. So in order to keep things at a minimum, they choose to kill. If this is wrong, we're gonna kill it. And
It
then
doesn't just justify the means does not exist in this world.
yes, and we're definitely going to get into that in a second, because there is another philosophical thought that I would like for us to tackle during this week while we concentrate on this story. Um, I'm trying to find the word. It gets into uh, this girl had already decided that the social workers were less important than her father, and therefore the reason didn't matter why he was killed. She believed that the entire city is less important than one man's selfishness. Poor child, she is nearly septic with the taint of our word. Septic is another word that we're going to do, and we'll get into that definition in a moment. Um, well, I lost the word, but I don't want to get too caught up in the fact that I lost the word. Um, what I want to do is just talk about things that we despise. We're gonna do a little bit of shadow work. because what happens in this story, we don't know the full backstory of this girl and her father. We just know they were together and she watched her father be killed for something he was doing. He was spreading knowledge that was poisoning the people and causing them to become selfish when in that dystopia one person could not be better than the whole. So Anathema was a feeling that this girl had felt for the social workers and felt for the entire situation that was happening, even though she fully didn't understand because she had been, indoctrinated with what, her father was teaching about people being individualistic and one being greater than the other and so on and so forth. So anathema is another word that we're going to think about while we do some shadow work. We're going to talk about some things that we feel passionately angry about. Let's get into it. Let's talk about why we feel passionately angry about those things, and then we can get into it on a social level. What are some things that we see amongst others? Can you answer that question? Is there something that you see amongst others in this society that you see them become like passionately angry about?
Continuing the conversation that has already been dealt with,
Hmm. So
or
prolonging like disputes.
yeah, or even starting one that doesn't exist.
Okay. Lucy?
So in short, I hate news.
Oh, you hate the okay. So the news, and you
News
know
and
what?
politics.
That's a perfect example because those things are built with intention. Those things are built by design to make you feel a certain kind of way, to invoke you to become angry and do what they want you to do when you're angry, or invoke you to become afraid and do what they want you to do when you're afraid. So all of that is definitely by design, and that was a great example because they will replay the same news over and over and over again in different ways, and sometimes even fabricate stories to fall within certain stories for repetition purposes. So yeah, that was a good example. I see people become angry. More everybody is an out of sight, out of mind person. If it's not in my sight, I don't know what's happening, so I'm not emotionally attached. But when people actually see and visualize social injustices and political injustices and things like that, it seems like people get passionately angry about that. Things do occur as a result of those things.
No, my
Um,
bad.
you
Oh, my
okay?
bad.
Yeah, perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine. I
Yeah.
didn't get like you.
Mm, it's just content.
But yeah, that's a good word. Septic. Do you have the word septic that we wrote down? That I talked about. We came past that. So when the girl watched her father pass away, of course she was angry and upset. And in the story, let me find that sentence. She believes the entire city is less important than one man's selfishness. Poor child, she is merely septic with the taint of our world.
Infected with microorganisms, especially harmful bacteria.
Yeah, so the girl was infected. Now, the narrator of this story is someone that lives in a different world. They don't live in Umhala. They live in a different world and they're talking about Umhala. So when they say that this girl is tainted with things of our world, they're talking about their separate world outside of Umhala. That like this girl has heard about their world and they see the plus like that's like someone hearing about our world and how we have individualistic freedoms and things like that and not realizing and not hearing about the immorality or the inequality or the shallowness that comes with our individuality and us doing the things that we are able to do. And so they basically, this girl has been tainted with
I'd like
things of
to.
our world.
I'd like to imagine this world without taxes.
Okay. I want you to septic is another word we're gonna concentrate on. Let me go back to writing. Well, you've been writing notes this time, so the aspirations and also anathema and just doing some work and finding out like what triggers us And where do we get angry at? And we're going to get into our natal charts when we get into our anathema. We're going to get into some Scorpio and Lilith energy with that. Um, and that's something that we'll talk about tomorrow when we come back to the story. Septic. So, repeat the definition of septic. What is it again?
Infected with microorganisms, especially harmful bacteria. I guess that was more of a crude way of saying that they had a wrong perspective to them.
Right. So, we want to use that analogy as well, okay? What are some things that we consider would be like a septic to us? And that's going to piggyback off our first reflective question as far as like what are our aspirations. So we're going to get into some things that we become septic to in this world.
I think it's normal when you're a teenager to like know it, but like off the rip, just being involved with inequality, or what is it? Uh, I don't know. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Inequality?
Inequality and something else.
Immorality?
No.
Mm,
Something close. I'm imagining it, but it's not coming to my head.
that's okay.
You can continue though.
Um, okay, so certain things that like I know just off the bat without getting too deep into it that we have become subject to in this world is kind of like again coming back to that individuality talk. A lot of our individuality talk is coming from us coming from a place of what I want or who I want to be as an individual is more important or more glamorous or should be more celebrated than who you are and what you want. And it shouldn't be that way. Like we have grown in a society, like me and my upbringing, I was brought up in a society where we disowned certain things, we didn't do certain things. And now being an adult, I'm in a society where we celebrate those things that I was taught that we shouldn't do or be. But and I don't mind being okay with those things. I don't mind celebrating them, but I still would like to remain myself while doing so. I still want to keep my morals, my personal morals, and my personal values, that I have that make me who I am. There's a reason why I'm not a homosexual. There's a reason why I'm not into, poly. There's a reason why I am who I am. And I don't want to have to like pretend like I'm not who I am because society. Yes. Do y'all have a piece of paper or a book we could use?
No, I do not have.
What do you
All
need?
mine are being used. He was asking me.
Oh, but
I have
yeah.
his problems. I don't have no spare paper. No spare paper. I'm using it.
Oh, okay. Oh no.
Come on.
Oh.
You got it?
Huh?
You got it for him?
What you need paper? Like what kind of paper do you need? You need like lines and stuff? Yeah. Oh, thank you. I can't wait till I get my yurt. I'm gonna have my own fucking yurt. Ain't nobody gonna be allowed in my yurt.
It's nice to hear you say that.
Honesty for that ass. Nobody's allowed in here. But yeah, I don't even know where I was.
Before going through the year, you were talking about Black History Month. You were going through septic. You're going through things that you were septic about. Since I heard you done mine.
Yes. The talk on individuality and just being an adult and hearing, yeah, yeah.
What are you doing?
If you're gonna sit in here, be quiet. I'm really like, I just want to finish this. I got 5 minutes left of this class, and then we gotta go do the next thing. I don't want to stop no more.
I want to be involved.
Right, like the frick.
Close the door, please. All the way.
This.
Yeah, no arguments. Please close the door all the way.
So yeah, let's get this over with so we go on to the next thing. All right. I don't even. We can get into that later. So I wanted to get into dystopia versus utopia. So I did the research for them already. Utopia is like a remote capitalistic environment.
Where everything is pictured perfect.
Yes, but it's deemed unrealistic, right?
Yeah.
And then a dystopia.
Having a world full of peace.
Yeah.
Without, nothing planned out.
Right. So I want you to write the word utopia, because what we're going to do this week is we're going to imagine
utopia,
or
what we see as a utopia.
Yes. We are going to create our own utopias. What is a perfect world to you? What does it look like? What do the people look like? Because in this story, the author talks about, who the peacekeepers are, what their names are, how they keep the peace, what the main laws are, some general statements about their mindset and how they interact with each other and things like that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna write in our own words what our utopia looks like, and then I want to get us to get into what our dystopia looks like. So a dystopia is an imagined state or society in which there is great suffering or injustice. It's usually a post-apocalyptic state, and most post-apocalyptic areas are what, like nuclear disasters. What are some other apocalyptic stories that we know of?
Tornado?
Yeah, natural disasters. Good answer. Thank you. Natural disasters, man-made disasters like nuclear war. What are some other things? Um,
If you believe in said things, you could say supernatural.
Supernatural happenings.
Or maybe intergalactic.
Yes, extraterrestrial things. Yeah. Hi, Mom. But yeah, we have all of those things. And those all create, post-apocalyptic environments. So we're going to create a utopia this week, but we're also going to create a dystopia. As we read in the story, Halal was actually considered a dystopia. No, was it? Yeah, it was considered a dystopia.
To the citizens, yes, but to the hierarchy, they just considered it as the best thing that could be done.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's the best thing that could be done. We're gonna get into like that exact page in a second. But Halal and the person that was narrating the story, the man where they were from, those two worlds kind of go back like their rivalry worlds, their rivals or whatever. And so what we're gonna do is you're gonna write your own. Are you still doing the notes?
Mm-hmm.
All right, come on, do the notes. Nope, keep it
easy out.
Why would you turn your laptop off in the middle of class?
They didn't.
It's died.
Okay, Mom?
Oh, so you gotta get your charger?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the meantime, get your pen and paper so we can finish up this class, and then when we go into the next one, you can go ahead and get your charger.
Right.
But we're gonna do a utopia and a dystopia. Yes, I'm okay. We're gonna describe both of them, and then we're going to have them go up against each other, and we'll get into that.
Really?
Yes. Okay, so once we describe our utopia and dystopia, you're gonna describe yours. I'm gonna describe mine because I'm gonna do the homework with you. I'm not gonna actually do anything that I don't do as well. And we're gonna exchange them. You're gonna give me yours, and I'm gonna give you mine. And what I want you to do with mine is you're gonna make a short story about one world, talking about the other one, like it's a terrible place to be. You're gonna have the dystopia talking about the utopia, like it's a wonderful place to be, and you'll have the no, reverse that. The utopia talking about the dystopia, like it's a place to be, the same way as the man that was killed in the story. And I want you to talk about the utopia like it's a place to be, like the narrator was in the story. And I'm gonna do that with yours. Make sense? We're gonna get some creative writing popping, and you guys can do that too. You guys can create a utopia and dystopia. I'm on StreamYard, so if y'all want to be a part of it and be a part of the live, we can have you added into the StreamYard or whatever. Just go ahead and message me. We'll be back on here tomorrow at 5. We meet up every day at 5 and do the homeschooling thing Monday through Friday. So you guys can, tap in between 5 and 5:30 and be a part of the StreamYard and share with us your utopia and dystopia you guys create, and we can, incorporate you in it. So that is another thing we're gonna do. And where's my notes at? So there's 2 more things I want to touch before we get into the next thing. So at page 8, on page 8 at the bottom, there is a quote. It says, and yet you will puzzle over the Halachians' choice to retain descriptive terms for themselves, like kinky-haired or fat or deaf. But these are just words, friend, don't you see? Without the attached content, such terms have no more meaning than if horses could proudly introduce themselves as palomino or miniature or hairy-footed. Difference was never the problem in and of itself, and Halachians still had differences with each other and of opinion and otherwise. Of course they do. They're people. What shocks the young citizens of Hala is the realization that once those differences of opinion involve differences in respect. Differences in opinion resulting in differences in respect. Write that down. Differences of opinion involving differences in respect. And we're going to talk about that too. We're going to talk about different specific instances where that's valid. And then when we get into page 9, when we go more into page 9, it says that once humanity was acknowledged for some and not others. And that's valid today. And that's another topic we're going to get to is we are going to talk about differences of opinion involving differences in respect. And then we're going to talk about humanity being acknowledged to some and not others. So those are 2 things we're going to talk about. And then also when we get into page 9, if we keep going into page 9 was a good page. We talk about progress without competition. Okay. We are remarkably primitive compared to Hala. Time flows the same in both worlds, but people there have not wasted themselves on crushing one another into submission. And this makes a remarkable difference. So anyone can do it. Build a thing to traverse the worlds. So basically we're saying that people didn't waste their time being in competition with one another. And because I wasn't in competition with you, we were able to put our minds together and enhance one another and put things into fruition. So that's another thing. So
you mean it's constant war?
Yes, when you're constantly in competition, yes. And is there progress in that?
No.
No.
Unless you want to finally say, I agree to disagree. But I don't think that's happening either.
Right. So now we also going to talk about that. Progression with and without competition. So that's another point I want you to put.
Say it again.
Progression without competition. And we'll talk about it with and without competition. Different instances where it seems like, we are not progressing because we're too busy being in competition and things like that. We could really get deep into that. This is such a good story. Now we're going to get into page 12 with the blood sacrifice, which I really like and I really want you to listen to as we get into talking about our utopias and dystopias, okay?
Mom?
No, wait a minute. Okay.
I can open it.
No, hold on. Wait a minute.
Okay.
But there is only one treatment for this toxin once it gets into the blood, fighting it, tooth and nail, spear and claw, up close and brutal. No quarter can be given, no parole, no debate. The child must grow and learn and become another social worker fighting an endless war against an idea. But she will live and help others and find meaning in that as she takes the woman's hand. Does this work for you? Does the possibility of harsh enforcement add enough realism? Are you better able to accept this post colonial utopia now that you see its bloody teeth? But they did not choose this battle. The people of Umhala today, their ancestors did, when they spun lies and ignored conscience in order to profit from others' pain. Their greed became a philosophy, a religion, a series of nations, all built on blood. Umhala has chosen to be better, but it too must perform blood sacrifice to keep true evil at bay. So even though this is considered a utopia, even though this is considered a place where everyone can be and love and
There still needs
acknowledge,
to be some bloodshed, even if it has to deal with a, not so painful way, piking someone.
so when we talk about our utopia as well as our dystopia, I want us to include the blood sacrifices involved in both of those. I also
I don't feel like piking. Well, not when I know what it actually is, but I don't like piking.
but like we're gonna
It seems
not
it,
right now.
it seems
Stop.
kind of
Sit down.
it seems kind of inhumane that people actually think about it.
Yeah, it does. But we're gonna get into that because there's a lot of different countries and cultures that everybody finds is beautiful and we love it and everyone's so nice. But then when you get deep, deep into it, you see that certain things they do in their culture involves a lot of bloodletting and keeping order, the ways they keep order and things like that. And we're going to get into that this week too. So those are the terms and those are the topics that we're going to get into this week with this story. All week long, we'll be going over the story and going over the different, getting into depth the different topics that we just got into. Tomorrow, we're going to get into aspirations, anathema, and septic. Well, actually, we're going to touch all of these. We're just going to be a step further ahead in things. And that's what we have. So come back in, tune back in a few minutes, and we are going to get into our herbal studies for the next 30 minutes. And we're going to talk about tinctures and all that and get into our herbs for yesterday and today. So thank you guys for tuning in.